At least 12 people died in Brazil Friday after a tragic accident in the state of São Paulo. Trade unions in Argentina condemned President Javier Milei's decision to transform the national bank into a joint stock company. And Pope Francis is responding to treatment, but is not yet out of danger. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. At least 12 people died in Brazil Friday after a traffic accident in the state of São Paulo. According to official sources, the collision took place between a bus and a truck on the Waldir-Canevari highway between the cities of Inuporanga and São José de Bela Vista, where in addition to the death, 18 people were injured. The bus was carrying 29 passengers, mostly students from the University of Franca. According to local media, the bus driver lost control of the vehicle on a two-way road. Trade unions in Argentina condemned President Javier Milei's decision to transform the national bank into a joint stock company. Through a communique, the Central Workers Union of Argentina and other organizations pointed out that the privatization of the national bank is another scam by Milei's administration. They also urged the bloc of both chambers of Congress to protect the assets of Argentinians and revoke the powers of the law basis before it harms the nation. This comes after the news of President Javier Milei's involvement in a multi-million-dollar cryptocurrency scam. In Argentina, members of the National Civil Aviation Workers Association continue to meet in the face of possible layoffs in the sector. The union condemned the authorities' intention to transfer functions to other agencies, including the expulsion of several workers. It also pointed out that the redundancies in the state agency posed a significant risk. It warned that the loss of qualified workers could have consequences for the sector. The Ecuadorian judiciary has ruled that the 16 soldiers being investigated for the enforced disappearance and subsequent murder of 4 children in Guayaquil will remain in jail while the investigation continues. The Provincial Court of Guayaquil argued that the preventive detention was necessary to guarantee the impartial development of the investigation. In this sense, the decision was made after a 2-day appeal hearing in which the uniformed officers claimed that the minors had been left alive. It should be remembered that on the night of December 8, 2024, 4 young people were abducted during a police operation, and on the 24th of the same month, their bodies were found burned near the airbase to which the soldiers involved in the case belonged. All this in the midst of the state of emergency declared by the government of Daniel Noboa under the pretext of tackling the security crisis in the country. On Thursday, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro addressed the media and political campaign regarding the Aragua-train criminal organization. He highlighted that Venezuela had defeated the organization and suggested President Trump investigate where its funding really came from.
They've wanted to use the Biden's administration campaign on the topic of the Aragua train. On this I have a very clear position. I tell President Donald Trump, with respect, to request the FBI and DEA reports for the last 4 years from their offices in Colombia, so you can see, President Trump, who funded, who mobilized, who led the famous Aragua train, who brought it to Colombia, who brought it to the United States, and ask for the truthful reports, so you know that here in Venezuela we defeated, dismembered, and put an end to that violent criminal group.
delincuencial, violento.
The United States is experiencing a severe egg shortage caused by an ongoing bird flu outbreak that has skyrocketed the price of the product. Health authorities have reported that such a spread of the highly pathogenic avian influenza has not been experienced in the country since 2022. Due to the outbreak, which started in December 2024, the commercial table egg layer flocks have suffered a depopulation of birds as more than 21 million laying hens were killed. As a result, egg prices have risen from $0.33 per dozen to $8 or more in some states. In this context, the U.S. Agriculture Department offered a gloom outlook as it predicted prices will continue increasing in 2025, with shortages affecting the economic productivity of businesses. And now we have a short break coming up, but first remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Pope Francis is responding to treatment, but is not yet out of danger. The information was provided Friday at a press conference in Rome's Gemelli Hospital by members of the Pope's medical team, who said Francis is in good mood, joking as much as usual, and has even begun working again. According to the medical team, the Pope is not attached to a ventilator, although he's still struggling with his breathing and consequently keeping his physical movements limited. But there is still a risk that germs in the Pope's respiratory tract might enter his bloodstream, causing sepsis. The specialist said the Holy Father would remain hospitalized at least another week, but his chronic respiratory issues will remain. The President of the Philippines, Ferdinand Marcos Jr., will maintain aid to those affected by the eruption of the Canlaon volcano in the province of Negros Occidental. During his visit to the Canlaon Volcano Evacuation Center, the President affirmed that they are monitoring the situation to provide permanent support. He also assured that they are working together with local governments to respond to possible emergencies and guarantee the basic needs of the population. The Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology raised the alert to level 3 and extended it to a 6-kilometer radius from the eruption of Canlaon last December 9, 2024. Ecuador's National Risk Management Secretariat reported that flooding, landslides, and other impacts continue in 7 provinces following the heavy rains. According to a report by the entity, between January 1st and February 20th, the rains left at least 9 people dead, more than 9,000 affected, 2,000 houses damaged, and more than 21 kilometers of road destroyed. The most affected provinces are Guayas, Manabí, Los Ríos, Chimborazo, Cotopaxi, Esmeraldas, and Zamora Chinchipe. Meanwhile, the National Institute of Meteorology and Hydrology warned that the rainfall will last until February 23rd and urges the authorities to guarantee basic services. Schools in South Sudan closed by official order due to a heat wave. The decision came after at least 12 students fainted during lessons due to the high temperatures. For this reason, schools were closed to prevent health risk for their students. Specialists point out that due to the location of South Sudan with no coastline, the temperature could reach 42 degrees Celsius during the summer. The Sudanese government recalled its ambassador from Kenya, Kamal Jubara, for consultations in protest against allowing meetings of rebel militias and their allies. The Sudanese Foreign Ministry criticized the decision of the Kenyan government by saying the latter's actions promotes a conspiracy to consolidate the coming to power of a militia. Moreover, Sudanese authorities described the Kenyan call as a serious threat to regional peace and security and to the good neighborly relations between both countries. Likewise, the Sudanese administration accused the Kenyan authorities of backing up the Rapid Support Forces, which had announced their intention to set up a parallel government. The Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov met Thursday with his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi to debate on concerning global issues. On the sidelines of the current G20 meeting held until today, both diplomats stressed importance on political dialogue to settle disputes. Furthermore, they tackled topics of common interest, such as their relations with the U.S. and possible solutions to conflicts, namely the one in Ukraine. Both foreign ministers agreed on taking the lead as stabilizing factors against the ongoing turmoil in the global system. Russia's state atomic energy corporation, Rosatom, denounced Friday that Ukraine could be using the rotation of experts of the IAEA for their own strategic purposes of the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. Rosatom's head, Alexei Lyakov, expressed his complete dissatisfaction, stating that the Russian troops would take all necessary measures to prevent it. However, Lyakov stressed that during the last rotation and in the failed attempts of the last few days, there have been attacks in the vicinity and even on mission vehicles, which put people, experts themselves, and employees at direct physical risk. On the other hand, the Russian Defense Ministry agreed to continue working with the International Atomic Energy Agency on nuclear security in Zaporozhye. The Russian armed forces reaffirmed the continuation of the special military operation in Ukraine until all its objectives are achieved. This way, the authority informed that despite the country's commitment to a diplomatic solution to the conflict, they are determined to safeguard their national security interests and achieve their goals through peace negotiations, noting that this decision is allegedly due to the funding Ukraine receives from its Western backers to continue the conflict and attack Russian territory. It is important to recall that last year, the Russian authorities formulated several key conditions for initiating peace negotiations, a proposal that was rejected by Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky. The Russian armed forces have carried out 11 attacks on various Ukrainian military infrastructures in recent days. In a statement, the Russian Defense Ministry said that between February 15th and 21st, the attacks were carried out in Ukrainian gas, energy and port areas, as well as power stations supporting the Kyiv military-industrial complex and sites of temporary deployment of armed formations of the Ukrainian regime and foreign mercenaries. According to the security service, the Russian air defense system shot down 2 MiG-29 aircraft and 790 unmanned aerial vehicles of the Kyiv aircraft type. The Russian government denounced NATO's growing threat in their domestic ports. Governmental authorities ensure military risk and threats against Russia have ramped up due to the upsurge of NATO forces willing to attack port facilities. In this sense, they emphasize that they were coping with these menaces to submarine and port infrastructures in order to neutralize them. Meanwhile, a high official of the Russian government pointed out that among NATO's targets are ships, large maritime oil terminals, railroad crossings through which fuel is transported, and large bridges. The Japanese government announced Friday that the United Nations International Atomic Energy Agency collected samples of treated radioactive water from the Fukushima nuclear power plant with the participation of China for the first time. According to Tokyo authorities, the move is part of the efforts to facilitate China's resumption of Japanese seafood imports. South Korean, Swiss and French analysts also joined the United Nations nuclear watchdogs taking of liquid samples from a tank at the site where treated water is stored before dilution with seawater. The nuclear plant began releasing radioactive water into the sea in 2023, which generated a series of negative reactions from several countries in the region. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The Netanyahu government initiated 6 colonial projects in occupied Jerusalem with the alleged approval of the Trump administration. A spokesperson for the Israeli Ir Amim non-governmental organization announced activating the construction of new settlements in Palestinian lands as U.S. President Trump backs up the expansion of Israeli settlers in occupied territories. The non-governmental organization further confirmed Israel demolished around 255 Palestinian buildings in East Jerusalem in 2024, in addition to 27 others torn down in 2025. These clear violations of international law and regulations forced the displacement of thousands of Palestinian civilians. Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued a communique to denounce Israeli bill and as the latter condemns entities and organizations defending human rights. The ministry ensured that Israel was trying to hide out the constant violations of its military forces. The entity further described them as war crimes against humanity. Likewise, the statement expressed Palestinians' rejection of genocide, forced displacement and annexations of Palestinian lands by the Tel Aviv regime. Moreover, they urged the international community to take action against such legislative initiatives by the Israeli government. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered a massive raid against the West Bank, justifying his genocidal offensive by the earlier blast of 3 empty buses in Bat Jam city near Tel Aviv, capital of Israel. Israel decided to tighten up the military Iron Wall operation, which occupation forces had launched since January against the West Bank. The Prime Minister made such decision following a meeting he held with both the police and the Shin Bet intelligence agency. Likewise, human rights organizations recalled that since January, Israel has expelled over 45,000 Palestinians from the West Bank. So they fear the Israeli government used that explosion, which there is no conclusive evidence yet, to keep up its military intervention. The U.S. administration imposed sanctions on African leaders involved in the conflict of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. President Trump sanctioned Rwandan Minister for Regional Integration, James Karabebe, and the M23 rebels spokesperson, Lawrence Kanyuka, for their support to the M23 group. Likewise, Washington gave penalties to 2 companies attached to Kanyuka. The M23 group has recently seized Goma and Bukavu, eastern main cities. Since the onset of the conflict, authorities registered over 700 deaths and nearly 3,000 injured.
There
were lifeless bodies all over the city of Bukavu. When we received a guarantee of security, we set out to collect the bodies throughout the city of Bukavu so that they could be buried with dignity and safety.
Many people have lost their lives in this war. We, the people of Bukavu, don't want war. We want peace. It's pitiful and sad to see our brothers who lost their lives like animals being buried in poor conditions.
In a ceremony marked by the rising of the Ivory Coast flag, France withdraws from its only military base in the African country. Parisian troops had occupied the military base at the port Bouet near the capital Abidjan since 1978. Tene Birahima Koutara, Ivory Coast Defense Minister, said that this act marked a new stage in relations between the two nations, while his French counterpart, Sébastien Lecornu, described the act as a historic event, acknowledged that changes must also take place in military relations. French troops, who have a long and dark history in West Africa, have been expelled from several countries in the sub-region.
Ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the year, the President of the Republic indicated on his keynote address that France would hand over the 43rd BIMA, that is French Marine Infantry Battalion based to the Ivorian Armed Forces. This one will be named after the late General Thomas Dagwin. This ceremony is to announce that.
And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok as well. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.